Hello YouTubes, I now have many passenger coaches for all my different road names. Only a very small percentage of them have lights, and I want lights and everything. As you can imagine, that's going to be a bit of a hassle because 99% of the coaches don't have electrical pickups. So I was looking online and did a bit of research, and apparently all I need is some of this brass or copper tubing to use for electrical pickups. So the idea is you cut a small section of your brass tubing, you get a new or used metal wheel, metal axle, remove one side. So far I've found that the side that's isolated comes off pretty easy. You can see there's a little plastic isolator there. That's going to be handy further down the line so you know which way around to put your wheels. Then you slide on your bit of cut tubing. Oh, my tubing's too small. Well, that's not going to work. Don't worry, I already tested it. Ordered some bigger stuff. So the stuff I originally got is 1/8 inch copper or brass tubing. However, the most important diameter is the internal diameter, okay? And it doesn't really tell you what it is. It's kind of complex because I've seen other people using 1/8 inch tubing and it seems to work. I also tried 3 different manufacturers of said wheels. The axles all seem to be the same. None of them fit this tubing. Okay, I have a bigger size. I hope it's not too big, and we will continue with this little video. So this new stuff is 4mm outside diameter by 0.25, which I believe is the thickness. The original one I got was 3.18 outside diameter, which doesn't seem a huge difference, but it is. You will see when I open this up and slide it on. If this does indeed work, I will post a link to Amazon, if I ever get it out. I will post a link to Amazon where I got this little pack. It was kind of the best deal. There's 4 strips of this. Okay, let's see then. Wow, that is really loose. I can't believe that that is the same diameter or slightly larger diameter. You don't want it too tight anyway, so we will give this a shot. Right, continuing with my plan. I'm going to cut a section not all the way across because there is an obvious flaw to this design. If you cut it too wide, like the full length of the shaft, so that it's snug on both wheels, right? So if you imagine that you have now got your little brass tubing going from end to end, you do risk causing a short if it touches the center shaft and the isolated wheel, because although the wheel is isolated, it's only isolated between the face of the wheel and the shaft itself. If this actually manages to make contact between that section there and the shaft, then it's going to short everything out. So my plan is to cut maybe half of the length of that we need. And it's going to be very important how we attach this onto the truck itself. So let me grab a willing participant, victim, and we'll go on with the next part of this installation. I currently have 3 V-rail coaches that are lit, or I lit them, and I will link to that video because I'm going to be using that video myself just to remind myself how to wire up the lights. We're not really doing all the lighting today, we're really just doing the pickups. However, I've got this one and I've got another one like this so that I'll have a set of 5. Now, this one is a Lima. What I want to do is work out where the wire's going to go from the trucks. So the best way to do that is to remove our trucks for now. And yes, I did manage to break the tips off of these things. Well, they still clip in, but I managed to break one off because I wasn't sure how to remove these. Just for future reference, if you've got a Lima coach like this, you really have to push it this way or that way and then up. If you just try and pull it straight out, it doesn't really want to come out because, as you can see, those little lugs at the top, they're not exactly, tapered. So you really need to kind of squeeze them together. I've found that there is a way you can do that without squeezing them together by, as I say, pushing them that way or that way and then out. Lesson learned, don't make the same mistake I did. I will get into how we get into this thing as well because it's not clipped in at the bottom, but we're not doing that at the moment. Okay, let's figure out how we're going to route the wiring for this. We'll put the wheels in first just to get an idea, okay? First thing we need is a couple of wheels or a couple of axles of the right size. These ones are a bit flangy anyway. They were making a bit of a clickety-clack that I didn't like. So I'm thinking that they are probably going to be 36-inch wheels. I know these look much bigger, but it's because the flanges are so big. These actually look a little bit bigger still than the 36. However, I think these 36s will work. We'll throw them in, make sure they work. If the wheels themselves are too small, then you do risk the shaft hitting off of that, but as you can see it's recessed underneath there, so it should be fine. I'll get them both in for now. It doesn't matter which way around, we're really just doing this for testing purposes right now. Okay, they seem to be okay. I've got different makes of wheels if the axles are a bit long and sometimes they don't spin very well, but these ones seem to be okay. We'll see. I might change them, not sure. It's not quite as free spinning as I would like. These are Walther's Protos, the ones that Mike and Roseanne gave me on my last visit. Yeah, I'm not convinced that they're going to work. Might have to file down the tips. They might just be a wee bit long, or I could just kind of stretch these out. Well, anyway, that's not what we're doing at the moment. We're talking about routing. Now, let's say our little copper strip is on there and there. And the way I'm going to do this is, because they're going to be independent, we might as well wire one side to be positive there and one side to be negative there, or opposite sides of the track, rather than having it the full length of the passenger coach. And that means we're going to have two opportunities for electrical pickup. Remember, when you go over a unpowered frog and you've got like the diagonal, it's like one side of power is here and the other side of power is like way over there, then your lights are just going to go off. Whereas using this method, it should maintain the light at all times. Right, on with the plan. So brass pickup there. I think I'm going to run a wire from there along to here. I'm going to drill a hole right up there in that little section there. So the brass tube's going to be there. The wire's going to come along straight through a hole there. This one, brass tubing there, wire comes along there and through a hole in there. I'm going to use reasonably thick wire. Well, that's a relative term, because I don't want the wire getting wrapped around the axles themselves. When it comes to attaching to the coach, I notice there's a nice handy little recess in there, which is just underneath where I'm going to be making those holes. So the wire will go through those holes. I will elongate holes in here, so I'll maybe make it go, I'll drill a hole and then I'll just carry on with the hole round to there. Same with round to there. So when this is inside, the wire will be rigid from there to there, but once it gets through that hole, it will be able to rotate in that little elongated hole that I make. That's my plan. Once we get the wires on the inside, that's the easy part. Let us begin. Let's start by cutting a couple of small sections. We're going to go about 1 centimetre. It doesn't have to be exact. I think a centimetre is about right. I have no idea where my light just went off. Let's continue in the dark. This gets hot, okay? So don't be tempted to... Well, I did it already in the last time I tried this. I touched it, and yes, it's very hot, so let that cool down before you go too mad. And I'll sort this light, and I'll get the other one cut, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I put another $1 in the meter. Let's continue. Now you probably want to use like a deburring tool or a file, conical file, to get rid of these rough edges. I don't have anything like that, so I'm going to use a big Phillips screwdriver. This is just a test anyway, and tweezers aren't doing the job, so get a small needle nose pliers. You just want as little friction on the inside where it's rotating around the shaft as possible. Doesn't need to be perfect at the moment. We're just at the testing stage. We can always refine this idea if it works. Of course, this is the second cut, so it's rough on both edges. And if you can think of a better way to cut them, by all means let me know. I might end up using an angle grinder out in the garage if I'm doing a lot of these, because that little Dremel does take quite a long time. Right, let's slide on one of my axles and see how much resistance there is. Is that still hot? Oh, geez, I'm always tempted. Oh, is it? No, it's fine. I think, yeah, it's fine. Okay, that seems fine. But what I was saying earlier, right, this side's okay because this is going to be the live side, but if that slides over to the other side, then that might be big enough to hit the wheel. So let's figure out how we are going to line this up onto our truck. Not that one, this one. As I was saying, actually, I was going to say that we need to solder wire onto this first, but it's a metal axle, so it's not going to melt the axle, you know. We do obviously need to make sure we've spaced these correctly. So that's too much. Just want it perfect. And seeing that, I'll probably take this off again anyway. But hey, start the way you mean to continue. Okay, so that's where I want it. Let's throw this one on here and see how it's going to look, shall we? You know what, I think I might have to file the tips off of these. Ugh. They're stabbing into the plastic. If you compare them to the wheels I've removed, they're not nearly as pointy and sharp, plus they're plastic. So these points here are digging into the sides of this truck. Every truck's going to be different. Some of them, these wheels will be absolutely fine with, but this is a Lima basic cheapo unit. But for testing purposes, you know what, it might end up being okay just by natural grindation. Yeah, I made that up. So let's say that's our isolated side. This is our power side. So I kind of want this to live over here. So let's say we position that roughly there. Find a pointy thing. So if we attach the wire to this point here, and it'll come straight across, go down a hole there, and keep that section of wire fairly tight, then it shouldn't have enough length of wire to let it go all the way across there, because obviously diagonal is going to be longer than straight. In fact, we could put it right there, right in the middle, but coming along straight, and then there's no way that it's going to be able to reach over to the other side. But it should still have enough contact to pick up power. Also, if we solder the wire right in the middle of that, then it's less likely to kind of go wonky, you know, left to right kind of deal. Like that kind of thing. If it's right in the middle, it should be fairly symmetrical for the power. So that's the plan. I'm going to solder some wire to that. I'm going to drill a hole through there. We'll do the same for the other side, obviously, because it's going to do the opposite thing over here. And then I will drill holes in there, elongate them, not all the way around. It doesn't require a lot of movement, and the same in there. So I'll bring you back when I've drilled lots of holes. Okay, that's all my holes drilled. Let's have a look and see if I got them in the right places. Right, there is the truck with the wheels. Not exactly centered, but that doesn't matter. Let's try some wire. And I will be using two colours of wire because we're going to have left rail and right rail pick up. So I will be using black and red so that it's easier to figure out how to wire them up once it gets into the train itself. These wires came from my resistored LEDs And I never use all the wire because it's so thick, so I've got plenty to spare of this stuff. I'm not sure of the exact gauge. Anyway, so that's going to be going in that little hole, coming over here. The wheel's going to sit here, there, that will get soldered on. And as I say, it will not allow the wire to stretch. I also wanted something fairly solid so it didn't get wrapped around the axle. So that one seems to be okay going in there. Let's check my elongated holes in the body or the floor. Actually, let's do it this way. So in theory, I should be able to feed that wire all the way through. And it rotates around that elongation. Is that a term? Let's try the black wire just to make sure. Black wire, that'll be going that way. Hey, that's actually pretty good. I've impressed myself. I could use maybe a bit of hot glue or super glue just to hold those wires in place. And then that will stop any chance of this stuff rotating. Not rotating, but from the wire rotating around. Wonderful. I'm going to do the same for the other side. And then we will solder a small section of wire from this onto our little brass strip on our wheels. Wonderful. And remember, these have to go around opposite ways from each other because that side is a pickup, that side is isolated, as you can see. You know what? I've just noticed that brass thing is going to hit the isolator before it hits the wheel, so I don't think I need to panic as much as I thought I was needing to panic. Anyway, let me get this other side done and I'll bring you back with a hot soldering iron. Right, that's the other truck prepped, and I have cut another couple of brass collars, sleeves, things for the other two wheels. Right, soldering time. Now, it doesn't matter which way around the wheels at the moment. That will matter when we put them into their trucks. Now, for holding this, don't put your clamp around there because you'll just squish it and then you'll make it egg-shaped, but you do want it to stay still. So I'm going to hold it right up against there. The little claws on the shaft is stopping that from sort of rotating. So we're going to get a little blob of solder on there. Well, that's a little blob of flux, but you know what I'm saying. Oh, that's way too much. Oh my goodness, I'm going mad with the flux. For the wire itself, let's tin this up first. We want this nice and solid once it gets onto the axle. Now, you're probably wondering why I made that quite so long, because we're going to make a little curve in it. Like this, so that we can hook that round there, and it should just give it as much contact as possible. Right, let's get some solder on our little brass sleeve. Like so. And we'll get one of our wires on. Well, the wire on. And we're putting it right in the middle of the sleeve. Remember, the sleeve's still going to move about at the moment. Let's get this over there, like that. That looks pretty good to me. Wonderful. Right, let's do the same with the red. I'm going to do one side at a time. So let's get another wheel. Again, it doesn't matter if it's that way or that way. That really depends on when we put it into the truck. And because I've soldered that right in the middle, it will naturally be over that side or that side. But we'll get to that in a wee sec. So let's get the second wheel from this truck done. As before, we'll get a small amount of, oh, for goodness sake, I'm so generous with my fluxing. Get some solder on there. Our pre-curved wire. Like so. Make sure that still spins. It does. Excellent. This isn't bad for a first attempt. I just hope it works. So we've got our first pair. Wait for that to cool down. We'll get them into the truck the right way around, okay? Okay, as I mentioned, I want one side pick up there, one side pick up there. On this one, we've got the pickup isolator, sorry, the wheel isolator on that side. So let's put the isolator on that side for the red. So that wire is going to come in this side because the pickup's here, or this wheel will be live, that will be live. Let's keep it all closest to me. We'll feed that down there. For now, obviously we'll be shortening that and hopefully making it a wee bit more rigid, because I want this to sit roughly there. So yeah, maybe a little bit of glue just to stop that, because that's not going to slide any further that way if the red wire is stuck there, right? But we don't actually want it rubbing against this, creating more friction. Around about there, I think. And that wheel still rotates, no problem. So as I say, isolated on that side. So the next one, the black wire, we want the isolator on this side. So there's our little isolator in there. He lied. There's a little, no wait, where is it? Yeah, our isolator is there, so that's going to come this side. Pop that in there. Get your wheel in. Rotate this round, and that will go in the other side. So, red wire is picking up power from this side. Black wire picking up power from that side. Let's feed that in. This will be easier when the roof's not on, but we'll get to that in a wee second, because getting the roof off of coaches can be a little bit troublesome. Lovely. Right, so red wire will be getting stuck down there, black wire will be getting stuck down there so that it can't move this way. Red wire stuck down there so it can't move that way and create a short. And that still rotates. Oh, quite happy with that so far. I shall do the same with that side, and then we'll go top side. Although, I did say I wanted to just a little blob of hot glue, I think. Yeah, I'll do that off camera in case it doesn't work. And I'll show you if it does work, alright? Okay. Okay, I think my hot glue idea worked, but time will tell. It really is just a drip in here to stop that wire going. As you can see, I had to use my screwdriver. Anyway, it's just to stop that from drifting over to that side. Wheel spins because I did grind the axle points just a little bit. And that's just going to depend on the trucks you're fitting it in, but I wasn't happy that it wasn't free spinning. So that's good. That one doesn't go over that side. It's restricted by that blob of glue, and it will also stop the wire from falling back out. Other side doesn't look nearly as pretty because I did that one first. Still works though. That will stop that from drifting away over to that side and shorting out. Likewise, that one's not going to drift over to that side and short out. Okay, let's get top side. Removing the roofs from some of these older passenger coaches can be an absolute nightmare, especially the Concours with their strange tabs that come up the middle. For this one, the roof separates from there and there, a bit like the new Walthers coaches. But it's not just a case of twisting it and pulling the roof off. I've noticed that there's tabs on the plastic or the glass. There's one there, one at the other side, and the same there. Although somebody broke that one. Yeah, sometimes you have to break things to learn how they work. So that pushes in. Same at the other side. Probably do it with your fingers, to be honest, if they're small enough. Get a finger in there. Same at the other side. And you should be able to wiggle that roof off. It's just those 4 clips. 2 at the front, 2 at the back. Now it's not doing it. Let's try the other side first. Like that, it separates. And you can see that sounded breaky, didn't it? Probably was breaky. Oh, I hate these things. Because I don't really want to be stabbing this with a screwdriver, but there's definitely a catch on the top of the window there. And you push that in. You see that? You push it in and push it up, and good things happen. Crack. Not keen on that idea at all, but hey, It's off now. I don't think I broke it any more than I had already broken it. Easy part then. All we need to do is wire up the red to the red, the black to the black, and connect some lights. Now, I could get really fancy, but for this video, all I'm going to do is basically just hook up a single bulb so that we can see if it works. Further down the line, we can add a strip light to the roof. We can add a capacitor or two. We can add interior, but this is really just about making these pickups and see if they work. So, let me cobble together a light. I'm tempted to put in a light strip, but as I say, I don't want to overcomplicate this video. So let's just wire in a simple pre-registered LED. I've made it easy for myself, so the red goes to all the reds, black goes to all the blacks. Easy peasy. That should do it. Tuck that in there. Remember, this is purely for testing purposes. In fact, let's stick this out the window. Get the roof on for now. And call this experiment almost done. Oh, I can't, I can't stick that out the window if I'm going to put the roof on. Let's not bother with the roof. Okay, let's get this to the track and see if my pickups work. Doesn't look great at the top. To be fair, it doesn't look great in the bottom, but you're never going to see the bottom. As long as it works, we can move forward from there, okay? See you at the track. Now, because I've installed an LED, this will only work in one direction on DC power. It should work both directions on DCC power. I'm specifically putting it here because the whole point of doing each axle independently is so that it can make it across unpowered frogs. Right, let's start with DC power. Give it some power and hopefully that'll light, and if it doesn't light, we'll change direction. So we have no light at the moment. Let's change direction. Oh, look at that, there's a light. Very nice. So let's take it across these points. It will flicker just now because we don't have a capacitor in it to keep it going. But so far it seems to be working quite nicely. Right, let's move it across these powered frogs or unpowered frogs. Stays on. Stays on. Although I think I might be cheating because I've got this switched on. I switched that off. That's cutting power from this. So it's now unpowered. Right, let's try that again. So the front is no longer powered. Wonderful. And now the back will not be powered. Still picking up power from the front. So I'm going to take that as a mighty victory. Oh, wait a minute. I was about to dramatically end it there, but we still need to try it on DCC, which is alternating current, right? So it should be on all the time in either direction. Well, it's... Okay, if you don't know DCC, I'm not going to explain it to you now. Anyway, that seems to work. So again, unpowered frog here. Light stays on. And I will get rid of the flicker when we add the capacitors or keep alive type thing. Excellent. Right, now I can do the dramatic ending. It even rolls quite nice. Well, sort of. Well, I'm going to take that as a solid win. Now, I know it looked like it was really involved and took a lot of time, and it kind of was, but I was showing it every single detail. I could do that fairly quickly. Still got, obviously, the light strip, probably add a bridge rectifier so we can run it in DC or DCC, maybe another resistor, and interior. Still a lot to do to this, but the main point of this video was, could we get pickups like that to work? And I think they're going to look or work just great, and pretty cheap, to be honest, to make. A little bit of work, but you know what? If you've got time, why not? It's actually quite good fun. I'm really pleased with that, actually. So I will continue with this in my own time, get some strip light on, get an interior, do the same with the other coach I've got, and then I'll have a full set of 5 Via Rail passenger coaches to add behind my Via Rail locomotives. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that answered a query about whether or not this brass tubing stuff works. I think it does. Bye for now.